Am I the asshole for offending someone who assumed I was trans? I, 25F, recently started a new job. During the whole application and interview process I communicated with the same person, the office manager, Susan. We had a couple of messages on email and she conducted my Zoom interview. I got my job offer a couple of weeks ago, and have been WFH for the company ever since. At the end of last week, I had an email arrive from someone representing the company's LGBTQ group. This was the national group representing my company. I work for them in a regional capacity, saying that I had a standing invitation to join them in their next Zoom chat, if only to meet other LGBTQ people at the company and have a conversation with them. I am a cis heterosexual woman. I replied saying that while I'd love to join them as an ally, there had been some kind of miscommunication, as I'm not LGBTQ. I got a quick response to that apologizing, saying that my name had been passed on to them as a new transgender employee. The only time I've discussed sexuality has been on the anonymous Equal Opportunities form that I submitted alongside my initial application, which stated that I was straight and cis. A couple of hours after that, I got called to an emergency meeting with Susan. When I entered the call she practically screamed at me that I'd misled her. I asked how, and she said that she and the entire hiring team had assumed that I was transgender because of the fact that I put my pronouns into my email signature. If anything, I do this because it will make whoever I'm communicating with feel sure in the pronouns that I use, and saves them from having to ask, which is something that I believe should be commonplace, but that's just me. I reiterated this to Susan, and said that I'd never tried to mislead anyone. She said that she'd only seen trans people feel the need to mention their pronouns before, and that when my face appeared on the Zoom interview it could have realistically been a trans woman, so she continued on with her assumption. She also hinted at the fact that my supposed gender identity had resulted in a big swing in my favor over other candidates, and some of the hiring team now feel like I should be let go, as I wasn't the best applicant on skill alone. I've double-checked since, and while the company can fire me without cause for the next year or so, since a protected category sex has been identified as a potential factor, I'd have recourse to challenge them on that if they were to terminate my contract in the very next future, because while you can't fire someone based on their gender identity, you also can't hire someone solely based on your perception of it either. She ended the call by saying that this wouldn't be going any further right now, but on behalf of the trans employees at the company, she was very offended at my choices. I'm not going to ask about if I should stay in the job, not the right sub, and also I barely have to talk to Susan now. So hopefully the drama will just die down. But was I wrong for immediately presenting myself in a way that could lead someone to assume that I was transgender? Edit. Thank you to everyone for responding. I have realized that this is a greater issue than just this instance, and will be following the advice to create a paper trail to document this further before taking my next steps. On another note, if you're going to take the time to message me calling me fake and both a SJW and a TERF, I mean why? Then please know I'm not going to waste any energy on you. Also, if a username has throw in it, I'm not going to take the time and word count up explaining the exact reasons I'm using a throwaway. Don't get in touch saying I'm a troll for using a different account.
Not the asshole. Regardless of if you get fired or not, you should speak to HR about her and this whole situation. She essentially outed you to staff and discriminated against you because of your sexual orientation and gender. Terrible.
Not the asshole. Your supposed gender identity shouldn't have been a big swing in your favor, anyway, so this is 100% their mistake. The suggestion that your face could have realistically been a trans woman is also offensive, on several levels. She obviously has a mental picture of what she thinks a trans woman should look like, and she's making judgments about people based on that. Not the asshole. Sounds like Susan assumed and made an ass of herself and now she's mad about it. I don't think putting your pronouns out there is a sign you're for sure trans either, so I'm not sure why she assumed that, but honestly yelling at you about it is something you can escalate to HR, including the threats to fire you for not being what they assumed.
Not the asshole. She got ahead of herself and made huge assumptions then, outed you to other staff. Even if you were trans it would up to you let people know that. She was out of line on all accounts. You might have an HR case if you wanted to file such. Edit. Spelling.
Not the asshole. Talk to HR. Maybe circle back to that LGBTQ employee group, too.
Not the asshole. They assumed something they shouldn't have and made a big oop. Also, pronouns are not new in the working world. My name is gender neutral and I use pronouns in my email signature. I'm cis.
Not the asshole. And for what it's worth, none of the people I know who use pronouns in their email signatures are transgender, so Susan has her stereotypes wrong. Most people who do that are cis.
Not the asshole. She's trying to do damage control and she's attempting to embarrass you and scare you into not bringing this to HR with her insinuation that the rest of the hiring team agrees with her. She screwed up, she knows she screwed up, and you need to take this to HR immediately and include as much information about her frantic freaked out phone call as possible. They will want to know about this because she is going to wind up getting them into a nasty lawsuit if she is not stopped.
Not the asshole. Also, I understand times are difficult, but if Susan and some of the hiring team apparently want you gone, I wonder if it's a work environment you would want to be in.
What the hell? Who hires somebody who wasn't the best candidate for the job just because they think they are trans? Positive discrimination is still discrimination and not good for anyone. The act of stating your pronouns doesn't belong to trans people, and should be normalized so that trans people don't have to stick out like a sore thumb when they do so. If stating and/or asking people their pronouns was commonplace, then nobody would go around guessing and using the wrong ones by mistake, which would be infinitely better for everybody.
Not the asshole. It's perfectly appropriate for people to give their pronouns and it has no implication about whether they're cis or trans. I would think a company big enough to have an LGBTQ network would be aware of that. I would consider approaching HR about it, because in what world is it appropriate to unilaterally use your assumptions about someone's gender or sexuality to out them to others, even if it is an LGBTQI group? That seems so bizarre and wrong. Was Susan even on the hiring committee? I think that stuff about being hired for being trans and some people thinking you should be let go now is absolute bullshit she's making up to make you feel bad. People don't talk like that. Not the asshole. How is it your fault they make wrong assumptions? Not the asshole. I hate the pervasive belief among some that pronouns are strictly a trans thing when it's been a normalized thing for a while among the LGBT+ community and allies. Susan made an assumption and doubled down and tried to play the turfy, I can always tell, card on top of that. Nothing you did was offensive in the eyes of the trans community.
So she assumed, without asking you, that you were trans. When you found out this assumption, you gently corrected it without making a big deal about it, and also without being offended. Now she's found out she was wrong, and somehow this is your fault. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. Pronouns on things like emails help amplify safe spaces for those who use non-binary pronouns. Susan also shouldn't assume you, or anyone, is trans, cause that's just whack.
Not the asshole. Take it to HR, and only communicate over email from now on. You want evidence of discrimination if they get a bug up the bum to fire you. Good luck. Not the asshole. And from a trans guy, WTF. Are they insane? Also, you were a diversity hire. Well, all the worst wishes to people and companies even doing that. Look, we are so cool, we even hire the freak show. Yeah, thanks but no thanks. Putting pronouns into signatures is also definitely not a thing only trans people do. And telling you that you kind of look trans. WTF. As a trans person, I would very definitely not want to work for that company. And I am out and it's in my CV.
I'm so confused. Is it standard to add your preferred pronouns to email messages now? Is this just an American thing? What a time to be alive.
Please do not let this be a real and truthful story. I'm just trying to imagine someone in HR doing any of this crazy illegal shit, but it definitely does happen still. But if this is a legitimate experience, you need to take and keep taking a log of everything you can remember of what was said, dates, names, times, and sue the every living fuck out them. Slam dunk discrimination lawsuit. WTF.
There is a question of whether putting your pronouns in your biography suggests you are trans. It does not. Allies are asked to put pronouns in bio to normalize pronouns. This is a pretty well-known practice. So this isn't your fault, it is Susan's assumption and lack of familiarity with the issue. Not the asshole. Clearly they are also not competent to be dealing with this issue in a private or composed manner, either. This is highly unprofessional and you should report it to HR immediately.
Not the asshole. Many allies put their pronouns on emails, etc., for precisely this reason, that people may assume only trans people do it, so normalizing it breaks down a marker. Are you in UK? Got that impression from wording. If so, you are absolutely right. Equality Act 2010 covers you here. Also join a union if you haven't already.
OMG, not the asshole. You embarrass them. See, they assumed. Ridiculous.
Not the asshole. Normalize specifying pronouns. You can't always tell a person's pronouns by looking at them or their name.
Not the asshole. Thank you for putting your pronouns in your email, it helps normalize it. Not the asshole. Susan made an assumption that only trans people list pronouns, which isn't true. A good portion of my own work colleagues and contacts from other firms list theirs in their email signatures and they are not trans. It's becoming super common in the workplace in certain parts of my country. I don't know why she's assuming the pronoun thing is an automatic indicator in a workplace setting.
Not the asshole. As a trans man, thank you for putting your pronouns in your email signature. Unfortunately, reactions like this are the reason pronouns should be commonplace.
Not the asshole. Where does this notion that specifying pronouns in your email signature is connected to being trans even come from? I've been doing this for years, because I work for a global company and I'm just not arrogant enough to assume everyone I work with around the globe will be able to tell my appropriate pronouns just from my name.
Not the asshole. That phrase, "don't assume it only makes an ass out of you and me," seems very appropriate. You presented yourself as you, they decided to give you the job. Personally, I would recommend starting a job hunt in the background though and keeping a good record and diary of these interactions.
Not the asshole. Susan shouldn't have assumed your gender identity, and her assumption is not your fault.
Not the asshole. Using pronouns normalizes it for everyone.
Not the asshole. You know what they say about assuming. Face with rolling eyes. It's not your fault they don't know how to ask instead of glancing at you and deciding what you are.
LMAO. Openly admitting to discriminating against people because they are not trans, and now it is out in the open. I wonder how it will play out. You are not the asshole.
Not the asshole sounds like the company is overcompensating and isn't actually genuine or accepting of trans people if they think this makes them look bad. Not all trans people put pronouns in bios or signatures, so her logic is off too.
Another day. Another totally real non-agenda post about trans people on AITA.
Not the asshole. And putting pronouns in your email signature is absolutely best practice for an LGBTIQ+ workplace because, as you rightly point out, it normalizes doing so. You've done nothing wrong and I think there's a very strong case for Susan being reprimanded for making assumptions about the behavior of trans people.
Not the asshole. She's made at you for her assumption of your gender identity and her lack of investigating skills. She could have looked at your other application papers to see that you were born a female. And I don't understand hiring a transgender person over another person just based on them being transgender and not their qualifications for the job you applied for.
Aren't we supposed to specify our pronouns as a means to normalize doing so that when a NB trans person does it, they aren't immediately outed in doing so? Sounds like you did everything right and she proved exactly why it's important for this practice to be normalized. Not the asshole. Keep them pronouns in your signature.
Not the asshole. I was invited to watch a trans visibility panel yesterday. When asked, what is the one thing an ally can do to help, many panelists responded with changing our signature block to reflect our preferred pronoun. You should not be penalized for other people's ignorance.
Those kind of people. They want to prove the world how open-minded they are while they are actually pretty much intolerant and make assumptions. You look transfemale. Really? And #X200B. Most of my Twitter contacts put their preferred pronouns in their description, even if they are cis, bi or gay, lesbian. It's not only trans, and while I am not really concerned, I think it is a good thing because it normalizes it and trans people don't stand out when they do. It is just my opinion, of course. Not the asshole in any case.
Not the asshole. Putting pronouns in emails is a display of support for the trans community, not a declaration of membership. In some cases, such as myself, I am of Asian descent and it may not be obvious to Americans what my gender is based on my name alone. It serves the purpose of letting people I email know whether to call me he, she, other. Susan is herself incorrect and misinformed about this disclosure, and could stand to have people with differing viewpoints added to the team.
Assumed that I was transgender because of the fact that I put my pronouns into my email signature. Which is something that I believe should be commonplace, but that's just me. Quote. Sorry. But I've recently seen this in an email and I think it's the dumbest thing ever. As a cis person, I kind of find it offensive tbh. Not the asshole because Susan just sounds like a big dummy and kind of like she almost favored you because she thought you were trans, which would diversify their employee pool even further. Whether you're being favored for being or not being anything, white, female, disabled, Brazilian, Catholic, that should not be the determining factor.
Not the asshole. I think everything I wanted to say has already been said, but I did want to add. My student community recently switched boards and they have only one non-binary member, yet all members started stating pronouns in emails and other communications. It should just be normal for everyone to do it.
NTA. A shitshow like this is exactly why gender politics shouldn't be in the professional world. She made it sound like you wouldn't have gotten the job if she knew you were female lol. Not the asshole. Fake ally Susan needs to get her shit together.
Bruh, as a trans person, the idea that I got hired for being trans is fucking embarrassing. Not the asshole. Unless I got a job at a transgender shelter or something of the like, why is it even being considered? Also, thanks for the pronouns. It is something that helps trans people and it's nice to see cis people use it. Not the asshole, she assumed and made mistakes. She's now taking it out on you. My bet is that if you consulted with an attorney, you'd find that you might have a discrimination suit in your favor as gender and sexuality shouldn't be a factor in you or anyone else being hired. If anything, disregard HR, they protect the company first, then the employees and let them terminate you. Yes, maybe they have time to terminate you and it's at will employment, however, that doesn't matter if you have a discrimination case, which is what this sounds like right now.
Not the asshole. I can't believe they said the things they did out loud to you and can't hear how wrong they are. Like it's your fault. They made a bunch of wild assumptions. Quarantine has gotten to them, I think. Keep your head up and good luck.
Social worker here. Many cis people in the field I work in have added their pronouns to their email signatures, and their Zoom names. It is people trying to move in the right direction to normalize this. As someone who hires for our team, I would never assume the pronouns mean anything more that, these are the pronouns this person uses. Not the asshole.
My employer had a big initiative about 2 years ago to get all staff to state their pronouns in their email sigband, to also wear a pin on our lanyards. The idea being to stop ambiguity and so that the LGBTQ+ individuals were not outed by stating their preferred pronouns, and to normalize the idea that we all had the choice to be known however we choose. I'd contact HR and tell them what she said.
Not the asshole. What the fuck is Susan doing? What an unprofessional shit show. This gives me the idea that the office manager is over-involved in the workplace processes somewhat, and in future you will have to interact with this unhinged nightmare more than you should have to.